Washington D.C. or bust. Here we go. October 10th, we're in Washington D.C. at the Department of the Interior, fixing to go in for the Battle of Druid Hill. This is it. Well, thank y'all so much for allowing me to speak to you today about my proposal, number 9150, Druid Hill, that I believe y'all reviewed on August the 7th. I've driven from Atlanta to try to clarify some points that I believe are important for the integrity of my proposal and for the process as well. I'm here to talk about my proposal to name a hill that seems to have drawn too much attention to my artwork. This proposal is to name a hill, not to name my artwork. It's a hill for the people. And I'm going to be delivering some additional details for review by the staff soon, so hopefully y'all will get those later. But I want to focus on some reliance on misinformation and distraction that was brought forth by the State Names Authority in delivering their negative decision on my proposal based on confusion and negative recommendations. I have a few points to cover, but I promise I'll keep it to 10 minutes. First, the BGN document notes that the Georgia State Names Authority document states the proponent's request to have his property and yard art designated a geographic feature is without precedent in Georgia. I have not requested that the yard art be designated. The proposal is for a hill. If all the trees and houses were stripped away, the hill would remain. If the artwork was gone, the hill would remain. My proposal is to name that hill Druid Hill, a hill for the people, common people. But regarding precedent in Georgia, the State Names Authority's approval of renaming of a creek by third graders honoring their mascot was without precedent in Georgia. So the bar for precedent is quite low in Georgia. And asserting lack of precedent as justification for denial is unfair and represents unequal treatment. I think the state opinion should be overruled by the BGN. 2, the State Names Authority states the BGN has not recognized similar work locations as meriting name recognition. Again, my proposal is for naming a hill, not a work location, not a locale. It's for the hill. The State Names Authority states there are similar folk art installations in Georgia to which we can compare Ashton's art. The most famous is Howard Finster's Paradise Gardens in Summerville, Georgia. As far as we can determine, Finster's garden has not appeared on federal maps despite considerable national recognition. It's not on federal maps because no proposal has ever been forth to put it on the federal map. This is a distraction. Lack of action by a hypothetical proponent for an unrelated feature is highly irrelevant. My proposal is for a hill, not an art installation. The state opinion does not focus on the facts and repeatedly misrepresents the proposal. The state opinion should be overruled by the BGN. The BGN's characterization of the opposing parties are profoundly unbalanced. In describing myself, the proponent, the BGN references out-of-context quotes on my artwork to illustrate some of my provocative ideas instead of my accomplishments. With 30 years of work to choose from, you could have been a little more charitable and comprehensive. In describing the opposition, the Druid Hill Civic Association, it uses language that glorifies wealth and privilege instead of illuminating their underhanded use of power. From the BGN's document regarding the proponent, it says, talking about me, his self-described Battle of Druid Hill, a faux historical marker, states that this battle took place as corporate troops used scorched earth economic tactics to keep hardworking citizens oppressed. This cherry picking for hyperbolic effect is typical of sensationalized TV journalism, of which I've been the subject many times. It's not surprising, I'm a fairly colorful character.
Looks kind of scary out there though, Melissa. Are you okay?
Don't be afraid.
But it's not right for an official U.S. government document with very real consequences to portray a performer's professional character as his personal character. If it were necessary to provide references to my profession suggestive of my personal character, the BGN should refer to community leaders, the newspapers, scholarly art journals, and college textbooks that have reviewed my professional work. They would have found quotes like, "He is a well-respected and highly regarded member of the community," or "Ashton's work is all about learning to live with each other," from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, or from the Birmingham News. "He has formulated ideas of tremendous depth and perception. I recommend without reservation." But back to the point, my proposal is not about me or about my artwork. My proposal is to name a hill for the people.
It's a nice little break while I'm sitting in traffic for an hour every morning.
In stark contrast, in the very same BGN document, the characterization of the Druid Hills residential suburb is one of stately mansions and venerated architects, steeped in 19th century respectability. You could have been a lot less charitable with them. There's no mention of their crazy residents with backyard zoos full of exotic animals. No mention of their wholesale profiteering on their own history. They just sold their own church to developers. No mention of their history of discrimination. No mention of their inside connection to the only county commissioner that issued an opinion. The character study is slanted in their favor. This juxtaposition is wrong and creates an unfair impression that the denial of my proposal is prudent. I'm an upstanding citizen and I'm acting for the benefit of my fellow citizens to name a hill for the people, for which over 50 of them have written in support. There's only one letter of opposition. Regarding the BGN's document Association of Frederick Law Olmsted to Druid Hills, my work was described as faux, but Olmsted is portrayed as historic. A bit of little-known history. Frederick Law Olmsted only worked on preliminary designs, and his involvement with Druid Hills is notoriously overstated. He had been dead for 2 years before construction ever began. His sons drafted the final plans, and they bailed out after 3 years when the property was sold to the Druid Hills Company. Investors took over the project, and for the next 28 years of construction, no Olmsted was involved in any way. The entire 31-year project was conducted after Frederick Law Olmsted had died. This is a faux Olmsted. It's a status smash and grab by Druid Hills. My art is real, theirs is faux. This is an unbalanced and off-the-mark critique by BGN. But again, it's not about art, it's about naming a hill. It's a hill for the people. The State Names Authority states, although Mr. Ashton asserts there will be no confusion created by his designation of his property as Druid Hill, we find merit in the concern of the Druid Hills Civic Association that there will be confusion created by an official recognition of the name Druid Hill well outside of Druid Hills. But according to the DHCA themselves, the purported confusion existed before my proposal was ever submitted, referring to a directional confusion. Additional directional confusion is a false premise. What they object to is the association of the privileged class with a commoner's hill. The DHCA concern is more plausibly this: their desire to maintain the exclusivity that developer Joel Hurt intended 130 years ago. But it is not the function of government to maintain exclusivity for private interests. It is the function of government to ensure equal access to all citizens. The common people deserve their singular hill. The denial of this feature would represent the complicity of government in the maintenance of inequality. From the BGN statement, the usefulness of standardizing, not regulating geographic names has been proven time and again. There's many a hill in Georgia named a hill. Give the people their hill. Every derivation of a neighborhood's name is not sacrosanct simply because the residents are wealthy and desire to maintain the exclusivity afforded by 19th century social order. The common people deserve their singular hill. The denial of this feature name represents the abandonment of the common sense standard of a hill as a hill and represents regulation of a previously unused name. Confusion between a real hill and a neighborhood with hills in its name is a false premise. Besides, everyone already knows where Druid Hill is. The Georgia Department of Transportation counts 35,000 cars a day that pass by and see Druid Hill on the arch. The mathematical concept of set theory is taught in grammar school, along with the grammatical concept of singular versus plural. There's no concrete evidence of consequential confusion, potential, existing, past, present, or future. But there is precedent and evidence of non-confusing, coexisting, identical feature names with different feature types in DeKalb County. Stone Mountain and Stone Mountain. The town and the summit are side by side and don't confuse anyone. The private sector has already spoken on this confusion issue, and it functions just fine, with 14 entities using the exact name Druid Hills outside of Druid Hills suburb. 4 new ones have appeared in the last 2 years. The common people deserve their singular hill. And they deserve it a whole lot more than third graders' mascot deserves a creek. Don't be confused. This opposition is about maintaining exclusivity, not directional clarity. The state opinion should be overruled. And finally, the State Names Authority says the BGN's Policy 7, Section 2 says that the board will normally disapprove a name when, in the BGN's opinion, the name is so similar that the feature will cause confusion. We think this policy should apply to this request to give an unnamed feature a name similar to 2 nearby subdivisions. The board's Policy 7, Section 2 should not apply in this case because the clear difference in both name and feature type, along with the overwhelming existing name recognition of Druid Hill, do not support this confusion argument. I understand the utility of the confusion principle for a disingenuous argument, but the reality on the ground does not bear this out. Local acceptance of the name is indicated by publications and common usage by the DeKalb History Center, Google Maps, Clio GPS locator of historic and cultural sites, Georgia Public Art Finder, Atlanta Magazine, Atlanta Journal and Constitution, among others. Don't be confused. The people deserve their hill. From Native American Creek to the present battle for Druid Hill, 200 years of American history speak to the sacred land that is Druid Hill that I'm trying to name. The state opinion should be overruled by BGN. And I really appreciate y'all listening to all of that, and I'm happy to answer any questions at all.
Land is your land.